Hi, my name is Jaren, and I will be your host today. In this podcast, we will be talking about immigration and motivation to come to the United States. Our first interviewee will be Jeremy Ortiz. He has a biracial and immigrant background. Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for coming. How are you doing?
What's cracking, blood? I'm doing fine.
So, where are your parents from?
Everyone from my mother's side of the family is from Cambodia, and my grandparents on my father's side of the family are from Mexico.
So, what was it like when your parents came to America?
It was dreadful. My grandparents were always struggling to find cash and were nearly homeless. When my grandma lost her job, however, they always persevered, and this is one of the ideals that I personally believe makes America, America. Determination.
Interesting. Can you elaborate?
Well, when my grandparents came here, they understood how tough it was to build a financial foundation as an immigrant, but they never gave up. And in the end, they allowed my generation to thrive.
Were there any particular experiences that personally stood out to you?
Oh, for sure. Like I said, my grandma lost her job, which basically almost put my mom and her family on the streets. And my grandpa was always struggling to find a stable house, crossing from one to another.
Wow. That's such an inspiring story, and thank you for coming on to the show. And good luck to you in the future, Jeremy.
No problem. Thank you.
We are now welcoming another guest to our show. Hi, Humphrey. How are you today?
I'm doing fine on this wonderful day. How's your day?
Pretty good. I heard you had an interesting story to share with us today. How would you like to share?
Yes, as a young woman, my parents, especially my mom, always wanted my brother and I to have a good education and go to the best school so we can go far in life. I always wondered why this was, but after I heard my mom's story, I finally understood. When she was attending a ghetto school in Los Angeles, she was always bullied for her immigrant background. Even in the workplace, she was turned down because she was considered incapable of being as productive as a citizen. She made so many sacrifices for not just my brother and I to live a good life, but also for our future generations.
It must have been tough for your parents when it seemed like all odds were stacked against them. So I heard you mention that your parents came from China. Which part of China were they from?
Yes, both of my parents were from a slightly large city called Guangzhou. They both came hoping to seek a better life here in the United States.
Thank you, Humphrey, for coming on to our show. There will be a quick intermission, so stand by. Please welcome our next interviewee, Eliza Lopena. So, Eliza, I heard your family also had a difficult time coming to the United States. Why is that?
Well, my mom did everything by herself when she was in the Philippines. She moved to the U.S. at 16. My dad left when he was 14. She left all her friends and family, and once she got here, she didn't know anyone at all.
Are there any particular experiences that stood out to you?
My parents never got to finish college. My mom tried to go back to college when my sisters and I got older, but she couldn't handle taking care of us, working, and school. My dad was never really good at school, so he dropped out of college. My mom is an inspiration to me because she works her butt off for my family. My dad always wanted me to play basketball because
It must have been scary for someone who's 16 coming on to a new country, basically not knowing the language, or like you said, not knowing anyone at all. Why did your parents move here?
my grandmother on my mother's side petitioned her to go to the and both of them moved to have a better life with more opportunities.
Well, that concludes this part of the podcast. We'll have a quick intermission and be back. On the final part of our podcast, we will be taking a look at my ancestors who came from Hawaii. At the time, Hawaii was not a state, and it was technically from another country. So when my ancestors immigrated to Los Angeles / Monterey Park, they were really discriminated against because they were outsiders, and other people felt like they haven't paid their dues yet. So when they felt like they didn't pay their dues, they were always getting discriminated against, like I said, and not given equal chance to thrive in the modern United States society. And as a result, they were very discouraged at first, but when they came to terms with themselves and realized that if they wanted a better life, that then they would have to deal with all of the discrimination, and they would have to push through. And this is one of the reasons why they came to America, because it was for a better life. But why would they deal with it? Well, because they knew that it was one of the American ideals, that it was to keep on pushing through and feel the determination, always to never quit. Basically, when they never quit, they ended up realizing that this American society that we live in was amazing, and comparatively to many other places, then it wasn't. It was basically giving them the best chance they had to thrive. And as of now, they live in a home where they're stable, they're financially stable. They had 3 kids, and which one of them was my parent. They always felt challenged. Well, with it meant like the World War II, where they were put in concentration camps, and regaining their income after the war. They understood that it was a natural thing, and Japan was an opponent in World War II, so they kind of understood the reasoning behind the concentration camps. And when they got out, they tried to build their income up again, and they eventually succeeded, which was pretty amazing to me. And I vividly remember it because they told me as a life lesson to never quit and always keep on pushing through. This will be the final story of our podcast today, and I really hope you enjoyed. We'll be back next week for another podcast.